Deep in the arid heart of the American Southwest lies a barren stretch of silent desert, where shadows conceal a dark and terrifying chapter of modern human history. Following the absolute devastation of the Second World War, the United States military rapidly entered a frantic race to develop more powerful weapons for the growing global conflict. Officials designated a vast proving ground just outside Las Vegas to test these immense atomic devices far away from major coastal cities, but dangerously close to other towns. The Nevada test site became the active stage for more than 100 atmospheric detonations, filling the empty skies with towering pillars of fire and terrifying nuclear clouds. Dawn would break not with the gentle sun but with a blinding artificial flash that illuminated the distant mountains and violently shook the earth beneath nearby civilian feet. Citizens and surrounding communities stood outside their quaint suburban homes, watching the majestic pink clouds drift slowly across the morning horizon without understanding the invisible and deadly threat. The government launched massive public relations campaigns to help ensure the fearful population remained entirely calm and fiercely patriotic during these routine testing procedures near their quiet neighborhoods. These official films and glossy pamphlets depicted the brilliant explosions as vital scientific progress, promising local families that the strange falling dust was completely harmless to human health. Children played happily in the snowy white particles that covered their schoolyards, catching the toxic flakes on their tongues as if tasting the fresh winter snow from heaven. Mothers continued washing their laundry and hanging it outside, while unseen radioactive isotopes settled onto wet fabrics, weaving poison directly into the daily lives of trusting rural Americans. Authorities constantly monitored weather patterns before each launch, but frequently authorized massive blasts, even when erratic winds threatened to carry dangerous debris toward the highly populated civilian areas. The top military scientists understood the severe biological consequences of internal radiation exposure, yet prioritized swift weapons advancement over the fundamental safety of the vulnerable citizens they protected. A culture of intense secrecy dominated every single large government facility, where whispers about mysterious local sicknesses were quickly silenced by stern warnings of national security and treason. Soon rural farmers noticed their livestock behaving strangely, with healthy cattle abruptly collapsing in open fields and newborn sheep exhibiting horrifying deformities that defied all normal scientific explanation. Federal investigators arrived swiftly at these devastated ranches, but falsely concluded that poor nutrition and ordinary infections caused the sudden mass animal deaths rather than any nuclear fallout. The tragic deception successfully protected the weapons program, while ensuring that local residents would continue freely consuming contaminated meat and drinking poisoned milk from their own backyard farms. In quiet towns like St. George, the cruel reality of the situation slowly began manifesting in the weakening bodies of the ordinary people who trusted their chosen leaders. Local doctors observed an unprecedented surge in rare cancers among children and young adults, causing profound alarm within medical communities previously unfamiliar with such widespread radiation exposure symptoms. Many entire families found themselves battling terrifying diseases, while the military continued denying any valid connection between the frequent atomic flashes and the overflowing wards in local hospitals. Heartbroken parents buried their young children beneath the dry desert soil, wondering if the patriotic duty they performed by staying silent had ultimately destroyed their own precious futures. The brave victims of this radioactive fallout eventually became known as the Downwinders, representing a forgotten population whose health was sacrificed on the altar of our global dominance. Their tragic stories remained deeply buried within classified government archives for decades, while officials publicly maintained that every single nuclear test was executed with absolute precision and safety. Whenever brave reporters attempted to investigate the growing clusters of severe abnormal tumors, they faced intense intimidation tactics and swift professional discrediting orchestrated by powerful federal intelligence agencies. These official documents deliberately minimized the true hazard levels, using confusing scientific jargon and skewed statistical averages to hide the acute exposure peaks hitting specific civilian residential areas. Unbeknownst to the general public, airborne radioactive iodine traveled aggressively through the atmosphere, depositing heavy doses of poison across dairy pastures that spanned multiple states across the country. This deadly iodine quickly accumulated inside human thyroid glands, particularly striking small children whose developing bodies ruthlessly absorbed the toxic element without any biological defense mechanism available. Many years later, secret memos revealed that certain highly ranked officials secretly discussed issuing protective iodine pills, but ultimately decided such actions would generate unacceptable levels of panic. Consequently, the illusion of total safety was prioritized over preserving actual human life, leaving thousands of innocent civilians entirely exposed to our most destructive creations in modern history. In local classrooms, teachers instructed students to duck under wooden desks, When the bright flashes occurred, a futile gesture against a threat that penetrated deep into their bones. Many Hollywood celebrities even traveled to Las Vegas to host glamorous viewing parties, treating the horrific mushroom clouds as thrilling entertainment while sipping expensive cocktails on casino rooftops. This truly bizarre juxtaposition of glamorous consumerism and apocalyptic destruction perfectly encapsulated the strange psychological denial required to exist peacefully during the terrifying height of the Cold War. As several decades passed, the undeniable pattern of illness among those living downwind forced independent scientists to look beyond official government narratives and conduct their own rigorous studies. These independent researchers carefully mapped the exact paths of radioactive clouds, matching regional fallout data perfectly, with highly alarming spikes in deadly childhood leukemia and severe genetic mutations. The resulting evidence was absolutely staggering, revealing a massive betrayal of public trust that sacrificed civilian health purely to accelerate the global arms race without any public accountability. Fierce legal battles eventually erupted as angry survivors demanded justice for their deceased relatives, fighting tirelessly against a mighty legal system designed primarily to protect federal military interests. Government lawyers employed exhaustive delay tactics, forcing sick plaintiffs into lengthy trials, hoping the aging victims would simply pass away before securing any meaningful financial or moral victory. The sheer scale of the secrecy campaign required compliance from local authorities eager to accept federal money, rather than question the continuous atmospheric explosions shaking their fragile foundations. Even indigenous populations residing near the testing zones suffered unimaginable losses, watching their ancestral lands become completely contaminated by invisible poisons that ruined their traditional methods of survival. Radioactive ash settled over sacred waters and hunting grounds, silently erasing generations of cultural heritage, while the federal government systematically ignored every desperate plea for medical assistance submitted. Military personnel ordered to observe the blasts from muddy trenches experienced horrific exposure rates, serving as oblivious human guinea pigs to measure the brutal effects of radiation poisoning. Young soldiers were marched directly into Ground Zero shortly after detonation, breathing toxic dust and wiping radioactive dirt from their faces, while officers assured them they were safe. Many of these loyal veterans later developed bizarre cancers, dying terrible deaths in underfunded military hospitals, where their true diagnoses were frequently concealed to prevent bad public relations. It took incredible courage from dedicated historians and whistleblowers to finally crack the impenetrable wall of official denial that surrounded the atmospheric testing program for so many years. Eventually, overwhelming public pressure compelled the government to finally pass the Radiation Exposure Compensation Act, offering meager financial settlements to a small fraction of the severely impacted population. However, money could never truly replace the lost children, the devastated communities, or the profound breach of trust between the powerful federal government and its vulnerable rural citizens. Even today, parts of the Nevada desert remain highly restricted and dangerously contaminated, serving as silent monuments to an era when atmospheric destruction was considered a necessary risk. Modern environmental tests continuously reveal persistent radioactive isotopes lingering beneath the dry topsoil, reminding us that nuclear fallout never truly vanishes, but simply shifts into the background environment. The horrific legacy of the Downwinders serves as a crucial historical warning about the dangerous arrogance of unchecked military power and the terrible cost of blind patriotic obedience. As new nations aggressively develop their own advanced nuclear arsenals, the tragic mistakes made in the American Southwest must not be repeated or forgotten by modern global leaders. We must critically question those who assure us that apocalyptic weapons can ever be managed safely without inevitably causing catastrophic harm to the very populations they supposedly protect. The invisible wind still blows across the silent Nevada test site, whispering the forgotten names of those who perished quietly in their homes because they believed the lies. This vast desert cemetery requires no traditional gravestones, because the contaminated earth itself stands as a massive monument to the immense betrayal inflicted upon innocent American civilian families. Archival photographs of glowing skies and smiling politicians now look like evidence from a horrifying crime scene, rather than proud achievements of 20th century scientific and military progress. True patriotism perhaps means holding our powerful leaders fully accountable for their darkest actions, especially when they gamble with the fragile health of unprotected citizens to achieve victory. The terrifying story of the atomic tests reminds every single citizen that unquestioning trust in governmental authority can sometimes yield devastating consequences that outlast entire generations of humanity. When the terrifying glow of the nuclear flash faded away, it left behind an enduring darkness that permanently altered the genetic destiny of countless innocent men and women. Humanity must always remember the hidden victims of the Cold War, ensuring their profound suffering finally forces modern society to choose compassionate peace over ultimate radioactive mass destruction. Let their tragic silenced voices echo forever across the barren desert sands, serving as an eternal reminder that true national security cannot be purchased with poisoned civilian blood. We close this dark chapter with a solemn pledge to honor the truth no matter how terrifying it appears, and to demand absolute transparency from those wielding power. The atomic dust has settled, but the urgent quest for justice continues burning brightly within the hearts of those who simply refuse to let history remain completely buried.